Hi, and welcome to Random Rogers Big Picture for the week of May 11th. One thing on the agenda this week, I'm going to try and answer an email or a question that was left on the blog Thursday night from longtime reader Rick. I'm going to kind of skip over some of it. You can go back. It was the post called Mid-Morning, dated Thursday the 8th, I guess it was. Let's see, Roger, you've consistently advised appropriate diligence when investing, but with foreign exposure, it's difficult to know when enough is enough. Talks about his experience with having lived in New Zealand, right on, or maybe they would say good on you, and his observations about what was happening when he was there, which was during the Asian contagion, kind of interesting. He then talks about here, or he asks, how do you assure yourself that you're doing enough diligence and are aware of those key issues that might impact your position? And then he mentions, for example, my recent experience with Iceland, which was a money loser, for anyone who might be new. He then concedes that maybe he's reading too much gloom and doom from Shedlock, but he can't help wonder about the Middle Eastern exposure, whether that might, be not a good idea, or dumb money, or last money in. Okay, so how to address this? Well, there's a couple of things here that I would say in response. Some will be palatable and some will not. But let's talk about this, first from as antiseptic as a way that I can think of. If you're inclined to invest in, is it pronounced Antipodean? In one of the Antipodean countries, there are certain things going on there, certain pluses, certain minuses. Obviously, I think they net out to a plus. That's why I talk about Australia so much. But that's one little thing that you might have going on in your portfolio. Maybe another one is something in South America. Maybe a couple of other things in Asia. Maybe some narrow things in Europe. Whatever. You've got different themes. Maybe you've got oil sands, or maybe you've got solar. Any of these different little things. Things that are kind of your core strategy, not in the sense of core explore, but your core strategy, what you think will do well, and a few things that maybe, this is kind of how I build a portfolio, that if I'm wrong, these things would do well. So for example, I had some discretionary exposure, or I'd had it for a long time with Nike, thinking that if I was wrong about the cycle kind of ending and discretionary did well, that Nike might stand to benefit from that. Point being, it's a bunch of different little things, and in a way, it doesn't really matter which ones you get right and which ones you get wrong once you wrap your arms around the fact that you are going to get some things wrong. You're also going to get some things right in all likelihood. And so does it really matter knowing that some will be right and some will be wrong, which is which? Does it really matter? In a way it doesn't. In a way it does from the standpoint of, if you, for whatever reason, need to show some sort of return to someone, which obviously is my job, then you do need to be concerned with being right a little more often. And so I was underweight, sticking with the discretionary example, underweight that sector, overweight things that might do well if the market and the economy were going to slow down. That kind of worked out. I've been overweight foreign, which again has kind of worked out. A couple of other things I have not done well, be they broad client holdings or whatever, and that just is par for the course. I would say after doing well for a while, utilities have kind of not done well as of late. Clearly, the financial stocks that I own, actually not clearly, one or two of them have done pretty well. My Canadian bank and my Chilean bank have done pretty well. Bank of America, my other European bank, Canadian bank, Canada, Chile have done well. And Australia has done poorly, and the domestic bank has done poorly. Sorry about that. I sold out of European banks a while ago. Anywho, but those had done poorly. There you go. So, from that standpoint, it doesn't matter if you're just managing for one client yourself, because you are going to get some things right and you're going to get some things wrong. If you've been lucky enough to be in anything energy related in the last, pick your time period, then you got that right. As far as how much due diligence, okay, well, I like to think that I do a fair bit of work. I've been criticized before in the comments for not, and the only thing I can say to that is compared to some people, I do a ton, and compared to some people, maybe I don't do any. It's all relative. So when you are making a decision, you have got to feel comfortable with the amount of legwork that you've done. Now, one thing that mitigates, buried in there is the what if I'm wrong point. One thing that you've got to do is mitigate the consequence of being wrong, and this is all my opinion, mitigate the consequence of being wrong by not making a huge bet. Australia, I'm about I guess a 3% weight. I could conceivably see going up to 6%, not more than that. For a lot of these countries that I have exposure to, for the most part, I'm not likely to exceed 6. There may be one exception in there every now and then, but most of the time it's down around 3 or 4%. Not big bets in case I get the country wrong. Because again, there is no not being wrong occasionally. That is absolutely going to happen. So you can only feel good about the work that you've done and maybe have something in mind about when to pull up stakes if you're wrong. So let's talk about the Iceland thing. Part of the thesis with Iceland was my opinion that it would become more economically relevant to the global scene. Well, I'm going to say that aspect of it was actually right. You're seeing a lot more coverage of Iceland. Unfortunately, the conclusion that I drew from that, based on the factors going in, the extent to which the banks are over-leveraged, the extent to which they have oars in the water elsewhere, that the growth fantastic, but what goes with it is inflation, the extent to which they need to import everything essentially but fish, the slowness with which they've been able to draw in companies to make use of the low cost, no cost really, energy that's available there for things like data centers. All of those things added up to what has been really a lousy stock market result. There was just it was short, but just a write-up in the Journal on Friday about Iceland. The market is down about 45% according to that article. I actually thought maybe it was a little bit more. But either way, so part of the thesis was right. The conclusion that I drew turned out to either be flat out wrong or the timing was poor. I mean, when I first got in, it did go up nicely. Then it sold off a lot in some sort of panic that it was in the center of. And then it shot up again, really very high. So I was guilty of poor timing, to be sure. And the way this has worked out, it was more exposed. It wasn't an island unto itself, so to speak. It was more exposed and more leveraged to what has happened globally. Probably should have seen that. I did not. I was aware there was risk, so I didn't really expose clients to it. Just a couple of people who are about my age, who with more money than me, aside from the account that I have. So I mitigated the impact on clients because I didn't really expose them to it. On the not the off chance, that doesn't make sense. It was the likely chance, I guess. That's the only way to say it. That I turned out to be wrong. Wish I wasn't wrong. I do think that they're going to turn things around. And when there is the next boom, I mean, things are going to continue to happen there. Come on up, Trix. Things are going to continue to happen there. But that's on the ground. And while there are problems on the ground that didn't exist before, those problems will fix themselves. And it's possible that the market could actually bounce back later than the economy, because of perceptions of how exposed they are to different things. Hopefully that makes sense. And all I can say is, Rick, all you can do is your best. And beyond that, if you're going to be wrong, know that you're going to be wrong, and maybe have something in mind to pull up stakes. It doesn't matter. You can pick any sort of arbitrary number that you want or whatever, but you're going to get some wrong, and that is going to go with the territory. Guaranteed I will get some stuff wrong in the future. I'm no different than anybody else. All right. First round of NCAA Division I lacrosse tournament this weekend. some fantastic action if you're one of the 5 households in America that has ESPNU. Have a